Hello, good morning. My thought for this morning, being fairly early in the morning, is that we have to remember when we're in Southeast Asia, we are guests in this country, certainly in the Philippines, more so than others. The way we behave in public, the way we are perceived in public as foreigners, it's important that we don't emphasize the stupidity of others who've come here with a particular mindset to misinterpret the idea that we have all these individual rights. The Philippines may well think of itself as a democracy, but really it's not the same as in the West. That is not in any way a bad suggestion that the Philippines is not trying to become a valued member of the Western society. Some of you may say that the infrastructure isn't up to scratch. I haven't noticed it really myself because a country that has so many people still in poverty, even though they try very hard to lift themselves out of it, is exceedingly clever in its ability to provide things like internet to everybody's home, to provide roads in general that can carry the sort of volumes of cars that are here. The idea that power, maybe a few disruptions here and there, at least is here to provide light in the dark hours. But many of you will say that the place is backward, that it somehow doesn't come up to scratch. But again, we're judging it upon that of living in the West. And I think that's a little unfair, really, because part of the reason we come here is to step off that crazy wheel that is in the West. We come here to experience life as it was, how we remember it when we were younger. And it certainly is much more akin to that. There were times when maybe you could leave a car unlocked. There were times when you could leave your house unlocked. Sadly, those days are going everywhere in the world. Mainly because I suppose the world is becoming closer to everybody, good and bad. And coming to the Philippines, one of the attractions, of course, is that most people here speak English. In a way, that's a myth too. The majority of people that you might come into contact, certainly in the provinces, are going to have very limited understanding of the English language. You can go to a mall, go into a hotel, and most of the staff will answer your questions to a limited degree. If not, they'll seek somebody who can answer your questions in your language. But to assume that everybody can speak English is a little bit rich. The kids in school now are being taught English, and therefore they're eager to try their English out on you. They probably don't quite know what your answer was and giggle it off. But as time goes by, English will be spoken more widely. If you want to find out what's happening generally in the country, you buy the national newspapers each day, they're printed in English, so you have a pretty broad idea of what's at least happening around you. The other thing, of course, is the concept that we all are perceived as millionaires, but of course we know that's not true. The idea that somehow we can come here and live like a king, as so many of you guys suggest you can, again is what does a king live like? If you want to have a pretty middle class lifestyle, yes, you can achieve that on a reasonable social security pension. But if you think you're going to maybe live in a condo, yes, it'll be cheaper than maybe the US or London for accommodation. But again, can you afford it? Or is it wise to? After all, you're coming to the Philippines, and the idea really would be to try and live like a Filipino family. We're not talking about handout level, we're talking about an average Filipino family. And the answer to that is you can on a reasonable social security pension, old age pension. And of course, the idea that somehow when you get here, it's going to be so easy to find yourself a wife or girlfriend. That in itself is another myth, really, because if you're living in the city, there's going to be a lot more of us, foreigners, wandering around. A bigger selection for those that maybe are looking at having a foreigner as a partner. But if you're in the Philippines, in the province, you're more likely going to be spotted amongst the crowd. And as long as you present yourself in a light that is to attract others, and I don't mean being a larrikin, I don't mean being loud, but just being friendly, good sense of humour, smiling at people when they go past, starting small conversations up with those around you. You will then be perceived as a nice person to maybe talk to. And one of the things that I've always noticed is that many of you from overseas, if you're God-fearing, why not join a church congregation? Because if you're seen going there, you're going to find people of your own kind, people that are not looking for a wallet. Sure, a wallet is important, but they're going to be looking for the person, what kind of a man you are. So don't give up on the Philippines. 10 years ago, the place was a different place. Now it's a lot harder for foreigners to come and do all of the things that 10 years ago were being spoken about. Don't lose heart. Don't be put off by a few stupid foreigners getting themselves into trouble here, because the majority don't behave that way and wouldn't risk putting their stay here in that situation. So that's just really the thought for the day. I hope that you don't mind. Give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Bye now.